What's up? It's Filthy Casual talking to you about another NBA video. We are trying to be as consistent as possible. I think I'm going to start trying to do less reactionary content and more like content of arguments or ideas that I have as stuff around free agency and off-season stuff cools, because I really, 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 really want to be as consistent as possible. And at this point, this is the path of least resistance. However, we're talking right now about DeAndre Ayton contract offer being matched by the Phoenix Suns. So, for those of you unaware, DeAndre Ayton got 133 4-year contract offer sheet from the Indiana Pacers. The Suns had 48 hours to match. They matched within a couple of hours, maybe like 5 or 6 hours. Not, I don't even think it was that long. They matched fairly quickly. The Suns kind of realized they were in between a rock and a hard place, and they're like, "All right, well, I mean, we can't lose them for nothing. Give them the money." And I think the main problem with how this whole thing went down is that the Phoenix Suns had to have known that somebody was going to be willing to give DeAndre Ayton a max contract just to come to their team. Could have been the Pacers, which I actually think would have been a great fit for him, and I'm kind of sad not to see him there, if I'm being perfectly honest. I would have much rather seen Ayton and Halliburton than Ayton and Booker. Um, but I digress. I the whole if it wasn't going to be the Indiana Pacers, it would have been the Hornets. It would have been, somebody would have had the money. Like the New York Knicks would have had the money. Everybody would have had the money. The Detroit Pistons, it would have been with Cade, right? Like all these teams, the money could have gotten Ayton. And I think when you don't offer Ayton the contract in the first place, you're souring your relationship with him to the point where he doesn't want to be on your team. He does not want to play for the Phoenix Suns. And I don't blame him. They constantly showed that they were like, we don't think you're worth that amount of money. And now that you're getting paid that, you probably feel at least resentful in some way. There's probably some vindication in there from being like, yeah, see, I am worth that much. But there's probably some resentment where it's like, well, you guys still don't believe in me. This is like begrudgingly handed over to me. And I don't want to cast any sort of emotion or reaction upon DeAndre Ayton when we've heard nothing from him this entire time. But generally speaking, that's how players seem to feel when they don't get their money, right? Because that's of course a big part of the NBA is these large contracts, these large multi-year deals that Ayton wasn't really handed, and as first overall pick, it's tough. That being said, I think that this definitely affects the trade market for KD. If anything, it more solidifies that I think KD is not going to be traded anywhere. I think I'd heard from, I think it was Windhorst, then a couple of other people. I think I read on the from the Athletic that there were talks of 3-team deals with Donovan Mitchell, or sorry, not with with Donovan Mitchell and Ayton and the Nets. Not, I don't recall if it was anything serious or not, but the fact that it existed basically means that any deals involving Ayton, who's from the Suns, which would have been, which was and is, I guess, KD's number one option of where he wants to go, which is wild, by the way. I would not want to go to the Suns. Um, any deals involving that have just kind of off into the ether, and it just shows to me that I think KD is going to stay for at least until the mid-season trade deadline. I don't think it makes sense to trade him before then. I think if this Nets are doing well this year and people are playing well and the team's got something to do in this year, it makes sense to keep them for the full year, even if you risk losing Kyrie for nothing. Because I think I'd rather have one more year of KD and Kyrie and them actually playing than trying to ship Kyrie off for Russell Westbrook and a first round pick, if I'm being perfectly honest. which honestly seems to be the one trade that everybody seems to not shut up about. So I'm presuming that's the one that's, most on the table. Beyond that, I don't know what you'd get from for Kyrie Irving on the open trade market, even though I think he could have really high value to a lot of people. I think that the market isn't trending that way, and you're more likely than not to get underpaid, undersold for it. Yeah, it's a 1 year deal, but man, I'd just rather have Kyrie on my team for 1 more year, especially without all this pandemic stuff. And I don't like Kyrie at the end of the day wants to play basketball. He doesn't want to be told what to do. He wants to have avenues to express himself socially, politically, and feel like he's making a difference in the world. Great for him. I'm glad he's got that. And I think as long as the Nets accept that, are encouraging of it, and just say, hey, like we got to do that. We're gonna do as much as we can to help you create a platform for yourself, but you got to play games. You have to play games. And Kyrie can bitch and moan about that all he wants, but he's under contract. And if, he wants to sit out and piss Katie off, I think Katie's going to, you know, that's a risk I'm willing to take because I don't think we're going to get crap. Like, I don't want Russell Westbrook on my team. Like, why do I want Russell Westbrook in a first when I can have Kyrie? I'd rather have 60 games of Kyrie than 70 games of Russell Westbrook. Or 50 games of Kyrie and 70 games of Russell Westbrook. 80 games of Russell Westbrook. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I think to do anything other than that is just stupid. As far as Donovan Mitchell goes, I think this basically makes it so that it's pretty much going to be a Knicks trade if a trade happens. I don't really think anybody else is willing to give up their whole future, or if not their whole future, but just like a lot of assets for Donovan Mitchell, just because it's like, okay, what are they going to be asking for? Oh, well, we got this much from Rudy Gobert. So how much do you want to give us from Donovan Mitchell? And it's like, okay, well, who's got those kinds of picks, especially when KD's on the market and can't get those kinds of picks? Why am I going to give Donovan Mitchell those picks? It just doesn't make any sense. Windhorse meme doesn't make any sense. I think that we, barring a Knicks Donovan Mitchell deal, which could happen, I don't think we're going to see much more movement. I think we're going to see a couple more people drop as far as free season moves, just because the Aiden thing was one of the last big things that we were dealing with. Now there's the KD Donovan Mitchell stuff, and the Jazz said that they were listening to trades, but they weren't like saying we want to move him, or just saying like, oh, if you're gonna give us something, give us something, which is Danny Ainge just basically saying, I don't know, what about you? Like, yeah, he's playing the game, and it's a bunch of BS. So as long as the Knicks don't freaking get on their knees and bow down to Danny Ainge, then I think we're pretty much set. You want to hear me talk about that whole possible trade? I made a video on it yesterday. I've been talking a lot about Donovan Mitchell lately, which is fine. I like Donovan Mitchell. But yeah. All right. Well, thank you for watching. Leave a like, subscribe. Peace.